Welcome to the Digital Marketing Insights podcast, brought to you by Brightside Digital.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm delighted to say today we have Daryl, Marketing Manager. Daryl, how are you doing?
I'm good, Thomas. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Daryl, we always start the show the exact same, which is, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Oh, God, yeah, sure, of course. How long have we got? So I suppose starting off, I'm based in Waterford. I have, funnily enough, I have a degree in hospitality management, and which is kind of random because I never actually ended up working in hospitality. Then I have a master's degree in marketing. I've kind of have about, God, I'm showing my age, but I have over 10 years experience in kind of various channels, avenues of marketing. Um, that's kind of my professional side. Personal side then as well, I have two dogs, have to mention them. And I would be breaking the stereotype if I didn't say that I do CrossFit. So have to throw that out there as well, just to tick the box of CrossFit stereotype member.
Yeah, you CrossFit members have to always say it and put it out there. So yeah,
So
I love that you're representing them.
have to say, if I don't say it, they take my membership away.
Brilliant. And Daryl, in terms of your digital career, what would you see as your main strength?
So my main strength would fall in branding, creative, and education. They're kind of the three areas that I suppose, had the most experience in, but I've also kind of gravitated the most to. I've been lucky in my marketing career that I suppose I've been able to use the opportunities to, I suppose, expand what companies are doing. So whether that's working on projects in relation to rebranding a company, working with companies and educating them on how they can use digital to their advantage, or on the flip side of that, working with students in colleges and educating them on not only the theoretical side of marketing and digital marketing, but also the practical implications and how that affects them. Where I suppose that falls in is I work a lot with the hospitality students in certain colleges, and I help them kind of understand, I suppose, how digital marketing has affected the hospitality industry. It's a unique area because I suppose it's so people focused that it really does present a lot of opportunities and a lot of risks for businesses. And I suppose that one is exciting to people. It excites people to kind of have that opportunity, but it can also, for people who aren't fully aware of it or have the full knowledge base or experience in it, can be quite a nerve-wracking area for them.
Of course, and for something like the pandemic, there's high turnovers of staff. There's
It's
different people coming in, so it's hard to keep that consistency. When
that's it.
you're, oh, sorry,
Oh, sorry, no, I said that, and especially within hotels where you're so focused on the staff and having that familiar face is so important, and having the longevity of staff so they understand the processes and understand the procedures. They're essential, and all it takes, and we've seen it before on social media, we've seen it before on sites like TripAdvisor, where one negative experience can spiral when someone puts it online. And everyone's connected nowadays, and I think one of the big risks is that people are more likely to jump online and write a complaint instead of saying it to someone there and then and having the issue fixed.
yeah. And do you find, is that one of your marketing ploys, is trying to market when people have really exceptional experiences? Do you try and get those
Yeah,
feedback areas out there? How would you operate around that side of things?
absolutely. So this is where I kind of work with people and help them kind of understand that, I suppose, although digital marketing can be one department in an office in a hotel, it really impacts the entire business. It has to be involved in everything, whether that's making sure that all the staff members recommend people to post their reviews online, whether that's, for example, we call them golden moments. So if a staff member goes above and beyond for a customer, if they do something that's really special, or if the customer has a really great experience, document it, post it online, get them to share it online, their stories, getting your hotel with a hashtag, getting a location tag, ensuring that everyone's aware of your activities and how that can benefit, I suppose, the business is really important. I always try and get people to look and think outside the box, but also be aware that when you're especially in the hospitality industry now, in every business really, but especially in hospitality, that your people are your profit. So your cleaners, your receptionists, your porters, everyone should be aware on some level of what digital marketing can do for the business, what I suppose they can do to help you, and also how to identify those moments that should be given that extra bit of attention. There's a great story that one of my students told me one day, that they were working in a hotel. A child lost their teddy bear. They knew what room the person was in, but instead of just putting the teddy bear back in the room and waiting for the guest to find it, they documented the teddy's day out. So the teddy bear had a day in the office where he was photographed and posted on Instagram doing different things in the office. He was in the kitchen sampling food, for example, and then at the end of the day, he was given back to the owners. And those little things, although it might seem small, it was a great little quirky documentation of a little guest moment that they were able to go above and beyond with and kind of make something special for that guest.
That's really, yeah, really good example. And yeah, I can see those are the kind of things that can go viral or can pick up local press and
Yes, that's it. And it's all about getting traffic. Anytime I kind of talk to anyone in hotels and in B2C companies in general, it's always that thing of, it's great to have the branding. It's great to have the lovely things going up online, and it's great to have the great reviews, but everything has to drive traffic to a sale, or everything has to drive traffic to a booking. So it's always with that in mind of getting people to, I suppose, trust your business, especially in the hospitality industry, where businesses, people have to experience the business before they pay, but also before they can form an opinion on it. Whereas in normal B2C and B2B, you can trial it, but you can touch and feel a product before you purchase it. You can't do it at hospitality. So it is very based on trust, and having that trust in the business to fulfill your needs and fulfill the service that they promised. That is to a value that you're willing to pay.
yeah, and you mentioned already about branding being one of your biggest strengths. How do you tie branding into all this, and what would you have as your kind of personal KPIs? What do you see as your biggest strengths and how you
Yeah.
drive a business forward in
So
general?
I suppose the big thing with branding that I've seen in the past few years is the idea of almost consumer brand co-creation, where it's the idea that businesses aren't the sole owners of their brand. It because of social media, because of digital media, it really has become an area where they can present their brand, but consumers do have an impact, and consumer engagement, consumer reviews, and what people feel about your brand does have an impact. So understanding that and understanding how to leverage that and how to manage that is really important. The other aspect of branding that I think is really essential is having that uniformity and making sure that everyone is aware of your brand guidelines, knowing your brand colors, knowing what your logo layout is, understanding how everything should work with it. So, for example, the sign on your building should be the same as your letterheads, which should be the same as your logo on your website, and the colors on your website and the stylization of that. So, making sure that everything flows together to give, I suppose, a cohesive look and feel of the brand is really important. Not only for internal management and internal kind of ease of marketing, but also to the customer. The customer wants to have a uniform experience. They want to see that everything flows and falls under the umbrella of your brand, and that kind of gives them that confidence in things. I know I'm speaking a lot about hospitality, but it's just such an easy industry and a good industry to speak with about this. But if you were, for example, a 4-star hotel and you were saying how great the quality of your service is, and then a customer goes onto your website and the logo from their website isn't the same as the logo on their social media, and the colors are different, and the brand tone and the brand speech is different, it doesn't have that cohesive feel, which doesn't boost the trust that I suppose you want to get from your customers.
So would you create a kind of brand guidelines from the off for any business you work with?
Absolutely. From day one, it's always, that's my first question. Every job I've interviewed for, every job I have, one of my questions is, what are your brand guidelines? Have you brand guidelines? Are people aware of your brand guidelines? and just helping people understand the importance of them is really important. For example, if you outsource your design work, do they have your brand? Are you working on the same brand guidelines as they have? If you're doing it in-house with small graphics, are you adhering to them yourself? If, for example, other departments, for example, HR, if they're making training documents, are they aware of it for your employer branding and how that should be falling into place with it? So educating and ensuring that everyone's on the same page just builds a solid foundation. So going forward, it becomes second nature and understanding of that. It comes down to everything from how you speak, how you present the brand, what colors you use. If you're hanging something on the wall, what color they're using, what layout are you using, is the spacing okay and uniform and everything else. And that just kind of keeps things steady. So when the bigger things come down the line, you're more prepared for it. There's a difference between hanging a photograph on a wall and hanging a sign outside your building. One thing is going to be seen by the public almost every day. The other thing is going to be seen by a handful of staff members, but both have equal importance.
Yeah. And you've really hit something that I think a lot of marketers listening to the show would be very aware of, but they might not have set brand guidelines within their company at the moment. Is there any, what do you see as the essentials? So let's
So
say, oh, yeah.
the essentials for me would always be, from day one, understanding your company, because you can't do anything without understanding it. And anytime I do a workshop with people, anytime I do a training session, anytime I'm working with a company in work doing things, I'm always asking, if the company was a person, who would they be? And that usually gets people thinking, are you an edgy company? Are you somewhat conservative? Do you want to shake the market up? I've worked with companies before where their brand was, we want to annoy people. And that was what we did. Everything we did was to be loud and brash and to get in people's faces. Whereas other companies I've partnered with has always been, maybe, look, we're conservative. We want to just do business conservatively, peacefully, and not rock the boat. After that, always kind of think to yourself, right, we know who the person is. What are their interests? So you're almost creating a customer profile, but for your business. What if this person was going to a bar? What drink would they order? What would they have for dinner? What are their hobbies? And all these little things help you to create a brand persona, which will help you create a tone for your brand. So when you're writing blogs, when you're writing articles, when you're writing newsletters and kind of sales material, you know exactly what kind of tone you want to use. And again, it keeps everything uniform. While that is happening, you always then want to look at your brand colors, your brand fonts, your logos, the quality of logos, and the logo rules are really important. So if you're giving your logo to a company to use, how do they use it? Are they allowed to put it next to other logos? How close can those logos be to it? Are they allowed to alter it in some way? Are they allowed to change up how the colors appear? So those little things, although they might seem small and you're kind of going, oh, that's a lot of work to be doing, they're all essential to making that foundation for your business to go the step above everything else. So, for example, if you have all this in place and you take on a marketing executive and you task that marketing executive with managing your PPC ads, you can give them the brand guidelines. They can have a quick look. They'll understand instantly what the brand tone is, how they should be writing ads, what words they should use, what words they shouldn't use, and how to engage with customers. So I suppose, it's a lot of work at the start, but it saves a lot of risk down the line for everyone.
Yeah, really well said. And is there any particular softwares you use, Daryl, that helps you pull in a lot of your work together?
Yeah. So what we do is I try to keep it as easy and as basic as possible, because when you're sitting down with people and you're talking about high concepts like, if your brand was a person, who would they be, and consumer brand co-creation and how consumers can influence your branding, you can easily lose people. They can kind of go, oh, here we go. This is something now that we don't want to do, or this is something that I'm not trained for, so I'm going to zone out. So really what I try to do is keep it as easy as possible. If we have a logo, we use Adobe to design the logo. We use Adobe to store all the color codes, and we put all that into a PDF. And this PDF forms a pack of what we're doing. The same with the fonts. We look at our fonts, we know what fonts we're using, that goes in the pack. Brand tone and samples of brand tone go in the pack. At the end of the pack, then it has the rules. So where the logo can appear, what you can and can't do to the logo variations if we have any, what fonts we use for bold, header text, body text, conclusion text. And then we look at, I suppose, things to say and what not to say. So words that can be used, words that can't be used. And it all goes into this, as we call it, the Bible. And you can give it out and it's all there stored. I try to shy away from complicated software and difficult software because in my experience, I've learned that people don't, I suppose, want to do that in a sense. If it's not their bread and butter and if it's not their bailiwick, they'll shy away from it. And they're already feeling a bit out of sorts because this is something that they're not really used to. So adding on software on top of that does confuse people and they kind of go, oh, you know what? This is difficult enough. We're not going to go and do this. But if I can keep it as standardized as possible, you're more likely to get that success levels. Usually for storing it then, if a company has, for example, a SharePoint or a Dropbox or some sort of cloud storage that everyone has access to, it goes up in a folder in there. Everyone has the information at hand. So if the queries ever do arise, they can go check that first. If the query isn't answered by the pack, then they come to the marketing department and the marketing department can kind of make a call on what their query is.
Really well said. Yeah, it's essential. Do you have a preference in terms of what you would store your data in? I'm a Google Drive man myself, but do you?
So I'm a bit of both. So I do use Google Drive. I use Google Drive personally. I think it's great, but professionally, generally, I use SharePoint. I've been lucky enough to assist in building some really great SharePoint databases where it's more than just a cloud storage system. It is, it's a business critical piece of software. So having that and having people trained up on that and using that has been really helpful for, I suppose, getting the message across, not just in branding, but in terms of the entire marketing department. It lets the whole company, I suppose, be aware of what each department is doing and how they intersect and interlope. So although it might, I suppose, reduce traditional communication in terms of emails and conversations about different things, it does streamline things. So it makes people's lives easier knowing that if they need something, check SharePoint first. If it's not on SharePoint, then you can come to a department and request it. It just means that, I suppose, once people are doing the research and work themselves, they're more likely to kind of gather that understanding rather than being told the answer straight away.
Brilliant, brilliant. And away from what you're working on at the moment, your strengths in your current areas, is there any areas that you're looking to upskill into and why?
Yeah, so I think for myself at the moment, looking to SEO is an area that I've always kind of tried to maintain a level of upskilling in. It's always changing. I suppose I always say that SEO is like a dark art. And it's one of the things of you have to be a real analytical thinker and you have to be really aware of things to do it. And I suppose coming from a branding creative background, it's just an area that I find interesting and challenging, but it's an area that I'm always trying to just get back into and to learn more and try and improve. It's always changing, which is one thing. It's always changing, so you can never really have a full grasp on it. You can understand it, but there's always a new thing. There's always a new word. There's always something coming down the line that you want to try and do. And I suppose I come from a background of creative, so I would naturally my mind would go to the creative side of things and the design and those aspects. Whereas I suppose with SEO, it does help to have that more analytical thinking mind. So I do like to challenge myself with it and I suppose jump in and bring it back to myself. So, when I'm doing SEO work, I always try something new, learn from it. If it works, fantastic. If it doesn't work, we know that doesn't work. We put that in the notes and we move on. So it's one of those areas that I'll always try and kind of continue a level of upskilling throughout.
Really well said. And looking at the digital industry as a whole, is there anything that really excites you coming up?
Yeah, so there's several bits coming up that I suppose really excite me. I know I spoke about consumer brand co-creation, but that really excites me. That's always kind of been something that really excited me. And I think that will, I suppose, change and evolve as the markets change and evolve. We're looking at Gen Z now, and as millennials, we grew up in a world where digital and real life are separate, whereas Gen Z and below, really, they've never known anything different. They've grown up in this world. So how they how they use digital to engage with brands is completely different, and they have completely different values and mindsets with that. So that's a really interesting area and to monitor and to see how things will evolve over time. Another area that I suppose does interest me, both theoretically and in real life, is the idea of influencers and reflection theory, as it's referred to in certain pieces of academia, which is like, how do people become influenced? How are people influenced, and why are they influenced? So if you look at an influencer, they're kind of selling a level of aspiration, and traditionally that's what they would do. And then you look at celebrity influencers who, for example, if you look at Kate Middleton, she would influence quite a lot. She would influence the market quite a lot, although she doesn't do it intentionally. So there is a balance between intentional influencers and unintentional influencers, and how do you balance that within the market, and how do brands react to that? The influencer market is always changing, and I know I was listening to a survey on the radio a couple of weeks ago, but they said that being an influencer is now a viable career option for many school leavers, which is something that just wasn't a thing when I graduated secondary school or even college. But I think that's a really interesting area to see how that industry will evolve. Digital is quite ahead on rules and regulations. So seeing how that industry will be shaped with different regulations and, I suppose, advertising standards as it comes down the line will be interesting. I know in Ireland there's been a few advertising standards been opposed on them, but there's still quite a varied market in what you can and can't do. So seeing that industry evolve and become, I suppose, a standard industry that has its own rules and regulations, has its own, I suppose, metrics for success, will, going forward, will really interest me, and to see how people get in and out of it and how they manage things. Because realistically, if you're an influencer, you're managing your PR, you're managing your content, you're managing your website, your digital business, your SEO. You're almost a self-employed digital marketing manager for yourself until you become larger and maybe picked up by a PR agency. But it is quite an interesting aspect of marketing that, I suppose, has been created by the onslaught of social media that many people probably didn't see coming a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and to be honest, Daryl, that's one of the best answers I've heard for the I suppose current landscape and future landscape, and
Thank you.
it's something yeah, you can see in every aspect. And we obviously we've been in the industry for a similar amount of time. We've seen the transition of,
Yeah,
the likes of YouTube exploding, and all of a sudden you have makeup influencers, gaming influencers, every kind of influencer in most of the most areas that people had interest in, or Gen Z have particular interest in, and now they're £1 million industries
that's it.
for certain influencers. So
That's it.
yeah,
And
it's sorry.
oh no, that's it. And it's just interesting to see how people get into it. You have people who have a natural interest in, for example, makeup, and they grow and evolve over time and evolve their audience, and they end up being an influencer, whether that's on purpose or whether it's just by chance. And then you have people who, might go on a reality TV show like Love Island, and they'll come out, and influencing is almost like a given career for them at that point. If they can sway the audience in that favor for them, they have, they're making multi-million pound deals just after a couple of weeks on a reality show because their following has just grown so much over that time. So it's interesting that there's so many different channels to the industry and how people get into it and how they manage it, and depending on the product they're using and influencing people with, vastly different audiences, vastly different platforms, and vastly different ways to connect and engage.
The incredible thing, and we'll finish up on that side of things as well, Daryl, but I still think influencer marketing is probably the most undervalued marketing strategy out there, because there's so much potential and there's so
Absolutely.
many
No,
micro and macro levels of influencer.
definitely. I've worked with makeup and cosmetic brands in the past, and like that, it would be very much of a generational divide and seeing the value. I think at times, not across the board, but in my own personal experience, where you would have to almost fight for maybe the directors or maybe the buyers in a company to, I suppose, see the value in it. But there is more than one value to influencers. It's not all just about getting the product out there and selling a product for your company. They also do have a lot of information and a lot of sway with their followers. So in the past, I've actually partnered with influencers to use them as market research and kind of approached them and said, look, we're buying new products in. Is there any products that one you want that we can push out through you to your followers? Or is there any products that your followers are asking for that we can buy in, and we'll do a deal with you that we'll supply you with X amount of product if you can drive some followers and customers to our company to buy these products from us. And there is a kind of I suppose, a mutual relationship growing then. I do find that trust with influencers has fallen. That could be just because I suppose people are aware that they're being paid at times now. So I always say that if you're a small to medium company dealing in different regions of, say, for example, Ireland, I would always go for a mix of maybe a couple of larger ones, but then go to the micro influencers in the regions, the ones that will do it for free, but and have a smaller following base, but have more trust because they're reviewing and they're promoting products that they're not getting paid for. So you're not being paid to say something positive. You're saying something positive because it's something you believe.
That's fantastic. And Daryl, we always ask everyone else on the show the same question, which is, if you could bottle up one personality trait that you have that you could pass on to others, what would it be?
Ooh, ooh. I would worry what my friends and family would say my answer is. I would probably say just be tenacious. Marketing, you're going to get knocked back. You're going to have to kind of fight for things that you know is right sometimes, or you want to try new things. And it's always just be tenacious. A thing that was said to me in college, and I've kind of always remembered, is never underestimate the power of I'll show you. So if you do believe that something is in the right and you can get the chance to do it, do it. And if it works out, fantastic. You get to say, I told you so. And if it doesn't work out, it's a learning experience and you move on.
That's it. Daryl, what a great way to end the show. I just want to say, first and foremost, thank you so much for being on the show. What a brilliant episode. And I'm sure everyone listening would love it as well. Daryl, yeah, thank you so much.
No, Tom, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. That was great.